I love the questions that everybody's asking. You know, what do I like? I got to think about that. Samantha's question, what do I do? In particular, you know, when you ask, what's the difference between what I do and what Clementina does? I'm traversing this big mud puddle in the driveway right now. So I teach coaches and speakers and other thought leaders how to write client attracting books. That's it in a nutshell. And where I market to those people, because I know where they are, I know how they think, you know, I know what they're after, I know what kind of book will work for them, for their skill set, and I also know which of their stories are probably the most important stories to tell in order to allow people to know, like, and trust them. And those stories are usually the kinds of stories we like to hide, the ones that cause us a little bit of shame or that show that we haven't always had our shit together and that represent a painful point in your life, which is usually how we set off on a journey of figuring out how to solve our problems. And those are usually the problems that we've had to solve for ourselves. I run like 7 miles a day, but I come up that driveway and I still huff and puff. And with a microphone, I'm sure I sound like I'm going to have a heart attack at any minute. I can hear a car coming up the road, so they're going to wonder what I'm doing. Yes, I'm a freak. So here's who I attract. I attract really spiritual people. And I don't know why, because I'm not. I consider myself about as spiritual as a McDonald's hamburger. And yet I do. And I probably attract them because I'm incredibly curious on how they think, why they think what they do. And I'm really good at teasing out their mindset, teasing out their history, teasing out how they work and operate in the world, because I don't operate that way and I'm incredibly curious about it. And when you start digging deeper in those areas, when you're writing on the page and someone doesn't get your language, it requires you to really speak to it in a very non-jargony way. It requires you to spell out what you take for granted. And that makes for good writing. And I have all sorts of clients. I mean, I have, you know, just between you and me and the cow pasture over here, I have Val neighbors who would probably fit my ideal client category if she weren't so loony right now. Unfortunately, she's, you know, all over the place, and it's interesting to watch her. But, you know, she's a thought leader who wants, or a speaker who wants to be understood, and yet she doesn't know what her message is. So it makes working with her a little remedial right now. It's like, what do you do? What is your message other than say yes? And I know that's you, Clementina, but what the fuck does say yes mean? And I have some other people within the BYS community that are really fun to work with, and they want to use their personal stories, and they want to explain how they work and tell really great client stories mixed in with their own, and that's a lot of fun. I also have a lot of rich New Yorkers. I don't even know how this happened, but I have young people, probably around 35, who make $1 million a year, and they have no life, and yet they are trying to understand the bigger picture. They're trying to understand life and where they fit into the world, and existentialism, and their connection to the universe. And so they're this weird mix of incredibly business savvy with deeply soulful. I've got people who are, like I mentioned before, these hyper wealthy New York brats who are really deep, and they've gotten into trouble, and they're trying to find their way back. They're trying to find meaning in their life, and they write their way through it. So even though I talk about writing business books, a lot of it is really heavily memoir. And so the perfect client for me is somebody who has a message, someone who has walked a path in order to solve some deep personal problems, for lack of a better word. And they've come to some brilliant conclusions. They've come to these life-altering mindset shifts. And they are usually saying something like this: I want to feel like all the shit I went through matters. I want to feel like it can save other people time and pain. And so they want to be deeply understood by other people, but they also want us to spare people what they've went through. They want to kind of help people make shortcuts. So you're looking probably for someone who makes terrific money, but knows that there's so much more to life than that, and isn't satisfied with just going to work and working 18 hours a day. They're wondering what it's all about, how they fit into the universe. So that's all for now. I'm outside. It's good.